If you want to become successful at anything that you do, you have to take control of the time. So you have to time manage as much as possible. And if you don't, well, then the time will just simply start managing you and you'll become reactive and you'll have no control in the things that you do. We can't control everything, but we can certainly increase the probability of getting better at things. And that's the key. So we want to get better at being able to manage our time. So if you want to create an awesome study habit, well, time management is definitely one that you have to have. So in this video, I'm going to talk about creating time management and thinking about all the different items that actually come up and you have to be aware of, and you want to schedule them in some form or way. And then also create something called a margin of safety, a time allocation, where when things go wrong, you can still go back and try to review things kind of on a weekly basis. So as a student or as anybody who wants to be good at something, you have to kind of think about the things that happen. And I'll concentrate here on a study habit with related to things that hopefully help students get better. So in school, you basically have the following things that you have to really think about, and they don't go away. So you have to schedule them in some way. So these are musts for school. Well, number one, okay, is you definitely are going to have to commute. It doesn't matter how you do it, it's going to be commuting. Either 5 minutes, maybe you're walking from your dorm, or you're traveling an hour or more from somewhere where you live. And you have to schedule and be aware of that. Next thing is class time. Don't miss it. Sometimes even if you think the teachers or profs or whoever are the greatest, schedule that class time, go to that class, and make sure that you try to pay attention in it. And clearly, that takes time, and you got to be able to have it. Now, of course, there are many other items that you have within your school that are musts that you have to think about. Tests is one. Assignments that you may come up with is another one. Maybe projects that are kind of like assignments. You may have labs depending on which courses you have, or essays. So these are things that you're going to have to try to schedule and know when they're coming up. So now another major thing is, which is something that people don't always allocate time for, and this is super crucial. You have to allocate study time. I'll capitalize it here, study time. It has to be there. You have to know when you're studying, for what you're studying, and where you're going to be doing it. So that is important. And of course, we can't forget sleep and rest. Now, you might say, well, I'm going to take a chunk and always, sleep a little less or rest a little bit less. It's not going to work. It's going to slowly start to catch up on you. So these are the things that we're going to try to schedule within, and I'll build a calendar to show you how it can be done so that you have an example. So what are some of the other things that we have? Well, life is not just about school, so we have all kinds of other things that are happening. So we have items which are related clearly to life that we can't really get away from. So what are they? Well, okay, so one of the things is that some students may have is they may have to go to work. Okay, so depending on how many times, and you're gonna have to balance that out with school. What do you want out of your life, right? So if you want to be really successful, you won't be able to work a hell of a lot, okay, if you want to be really good at school. But okay, you may not be able to avoid it. I wasn't able to avoid it as a student. I did work. Now, you may also be involved in some kind of a sport team, okay, and that may be anything from volleyball to swimming or whatever it is, okay, and which makes it harder because you might have to schedule that in. Now, you have some smaller items, but they got to get done. Okay, you got to pay your bills. Okay, if you have them, you have to kind of go over and make sure your groceries are done. Maybe you're lucky, maybe your parents are doing it or somebody else. Okay, but somehow groceries we're going to have to figure out because we're going to have to eat. Now you have kind of items that you should take care of for yourself, the doctors, the dentists, okay, that you may have, or other appointments, okay, that you're carrying on with. So These are items that you're gonna have to think about. Now, something else, just like groceries, you got to eat. Okay, there's no way, okay, that you can go without eating, right? So, and I'll talk about that within the calendar. Okay, and then you might have silly things, but important things. You know, you might have to be cleaning, okay, or doing laundry or something of that nature if somebody else is not doing it. So these are life items that kind of don't go away. They're always somewhere and around hovering, okay? So that, and they do take time, okay? So the other thing is that we have other items that come into play for us, okay, in our life as we're going through and we're trying to become a successful student, right? I always stress kind of making sure that you're going to be working out. So your health in some way. Now, you don't want to become a top athlete, but for your brain, you're going to have to do just a little bit. Okay. You know, 3, 4 times a week sprinkled in so that it does stimulate, okay, your brain and your neurons and so on, and gives you kind of a almost like a resting pattern within your study time. So family, right? So this is a big one. And with family, of course, there may be friends that you're going to have. So you're going to have functions or something of that nature where you're going to have to allocate some time to that if you want to have a semi-balanced life. Now, you may also want to have some fun just for you, maybe watching movies, reading, whatever it is, browsing, social media, something that you kind of have a gateway, okay, to get away from a little bit of your studying. And with that, you may also have some hobbies as you're going along. I don't know, you know, plants or stamps or something of that nature. So key thing here is, okay, as you are going through, we're going to have to try to figure out, okay, how are we going to be able to schedule these things in? We got to manage our time. Okay, let's take a look and see how we can build this out into our calendars and what to think about. Okay, that's what we're going to do next. So we have a calendar now. Okay, so I'm going to go over so all those time management items we want to be able to clonk it in. Now notice it's a blank calendar. It doesn't matter which and what you use. If it's Google Calendars, iCalendar, it doesn't matter. The key thing is that you want to be able to centralize it in one so that you don't have it all over the place. So the first item we want to put in is we want to put in all our classes. So all the musts. Okay, so that's the first item. So in the first week, even before so, as we get our timetables, we just clunk it all in. And I'm going to color code everything so that it pops out at me. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing right now. All right, so courses scheduled. Okay, so my courses, math, physics, English, chemistry, and an elective. Of course, yours might be different. You might be in a business program or whatever else it may be. All right. Key thing is let's schedule. All right. So let's begin. I inputted all the courses. So as you can see, they're color coded. I do have some labs for some of them, like chemistry and physics. You may not have it depending on what you are doing. So from Monday basically to Friday, so I'm lucky, so I have one day off. Even if you don't, it doesn't matter. You have to put these in. So notice math is red, you know, English is orange, for example, chemistry is yellow, physics is kind of light pinkish or light reddish, and the elective is kind of dark gray. So that's the step number one. That's what you have to do first. So the next steps that I'm going to do is I'm going to plunk in, okay, my commute times, my getting up times, and I will be back, okay, when we do that so that you can see it. All right. Now, the other component that I wanted to show you is that when you put these in, notice I put exactly the course. I put, which buildings it will be in, which room, so that I have it. Even you can put the professors or teachers' names if you wanted to. Okay, so whatever that may be useful, so that you can just look at it and know, okay, this is where I'm going, okay, and this is the building, and so on, okay, on campus where you may be at. Okay, another component is obviously I put this in for the entire semester. So this is January at the moment, and I will be spending it out for the whole semester, so that if you look at each week as you're going through, okay, you notice that it is already pre-programmed in there. So I don't have to do it multiple times. You just do it once, and it's just scheduled in. All right, so we'll see you shortly. As you can see, the calendar is now a little bit more filled up. So what I'm doing is I'm actually scheduling in things that I cannot avoid. Now, you will notice that I actually worked. So I work on Fridays and Saturdays when I was studying. So one of the things is with work, I always try to schedule it so that it's consistent, so that I'm not being pulled into shifts all over the place. And then it scrambles my actual schedule. So that was key for me. Now I needed to work because I needed to pay bills and so on. So you may not have work. Okay. The other component is, notice I scheduled actually getting up, and notice it's pretty consistent, right? Except Friday. Friday, just to give myself a little bit of a leeway, because as you can see, it was a longer day for me because I had to go to work. So I got up a little bit later. Now, some people might say, wow, 6 a.m., that's early. Unfortunately, if you want to be successful, you have to be consistent in some way, and your body has to get used to that pattern. So it's much easier. I always like to eat right thing in the morning and then start off my day. So when I say start the day, what I'm doing is I'm spending a little bit of time journaling, trying to see what I'm going to be doing that day and going over kind of the details of that particular day, right? So even if I don't have classes, right, like at 8 a.m. or something, I am still commuting and going and giving myself margin, so that then I can use the other times that are empty to actually study. And you'll see that I'll be filling that in this calendar. And the other component is, notice that I kind of call it a day and then try to commute back home. And then that's where I would try to catch up on emails or whatever, if you're on social media or something and with friends or something like that, so that's a little bit lighter as you're coming back, right? Sometimes I would actually also be reading my notes, right? Because, catching up on stuff actually doesn't take that much time. Another step forward. So our calendar is slowly filling up. So you'll notice that. So if I go kind of week by week, it is kind of repetitive. And that's the point. We want to try to think the least amount possible, so our brain falls in habits, okay, for the whole semester that we're going to be studying and putting in the effort. So we laid out our courses, okay, we laid out our commute and start of day and kind of commute backs. We put in the work if we're working during the week. And the next most important thing that you will notice now is I have put in two things. So I have scheduled 3 workouts, okay? So they're not long, but they're there, so that it just keeps me active and keeps me going, so that you can kind of go through and do that. Nowadays, I work out way more than this. I'm no longer kind of studying, okay? My schedule actually looks much different. This is for you to kind of see as a student and be realistic what you can do and you cannot do. And notice the other item is in the light green. It's all study time. You got to put that in. So you'll notice that on Mondays, come in to school and deep study. Okay, so and that will be an hour and a half. And I always leave myself kind of a little buffer, so that 30 minutes I might still be studying for the full 2 hours, but just in case, right? So things that are unexpected. Then after the classes, again, a little bit of time, because that little bit of time may be for eating, right? You're eating your lunch or you're eating a snack or something else, and then it's back to study. So you'll notice that math and physics in that first Monday, right, we just keep studying. Now, if the term begins, obviously in the first week it might be different, but in the second week you're doing it. And after the classes on the first week, if they didn't assign anything, you right away, you just study. You go over and recall everything that you do, right? So Mondays, you'll notice there's a lot of deep study along the way. And then kind of as you come back home, there's deep study for assignments and projects and laying them out and trying to see where they may fall, right? On Tuesday, the same thing, right? You have, again, so I put recall study. So recall is always typically trying to go through the notes, but then closing them, right? So I'll talk about that. I'll create a future video on that, okay, in terms of recall study and making that a habit. And then at the end of the day, notice because we had a lab, it was a longer day, we only study one course, and that was chemistry. And so between those 2 days, we kind of studied math, physics, and chem already, and we made point to do it. And it is pretty unique. Notice the schedule kind of starts 6 a.m. and ends off around 9:30ish, right? And then Wednesday, you do the same. Okay, so you put study, okay, for the elective, we put it in. We're back to math, okay, so that we kind of go back over the material again, and then back home, okay, so we kind of switch it up and go back to, let's say, English, okay, so to kind of make it a little bit out, right? And then Thursday, again, we put deep study in there, okay, so that was physics, and then to the elective, so that we're covering all the courses. Friday, there's no classes, and I will fill this up for myself, okay, but I'm going to be realistic. So getting up a little bit later on Friday, okay, because of work, it's a much longer day, and then making sure I put in some chemistry study so that I kind of lay out. So between all the courses, I'm at least studying them 2 times up to that Friday. And then it gives me the weekend to start thinking about some other stuff. All right. So that was our next step, putting in study time and then putting in some workouts. So I needed them. Maybe you don't need them as much. All right. Okay, so let me pause and I'll continue with the calendar, and I'll be back shortly to talk about kind of the leftover items. We're back. So now pretty much the calendar is kind of filled up where we have put in all our items. Now you will notice that on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I filled it up a little bit more. And I've actually even scheduled kind of life items. So things, if you have to do groceries, if you don't, well, then great. Maybe take care of some bills or appointments like dentists or things of that nature, or just cleaning. Now, notice they won't happen all the time. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, if you keep your place tidy, you don't have to clean every single week or twice a week or something of that nature. But, you should have some form of item where you have some life items that you're putting in that are coming in at you, and sometimes they're unexpected. Now on Saturdays, after work, so there's a little bit of deep study thrown in there, and then hopefully you have time, for a little bit of fun, or maybe just family or friends, or just being social, okay, so that you can do that, or just go over maybe some hobbies that you have. And Sunday is a really crucial day. I find that a lot of students, or anybody who wants to do well, sometimes they'll take Saturdays and Sundays off. When you're a student, okay, sometimes that is really difficult. And I actually say that, probably because you don't have courses, you can manage your time a little bit better. And I would suggest that you try to put in some deep study. Notice on Sunday I put deep study and I called it margin of safety. Margin of safety for all the items, that maybe are still lagging and you still don't understand and you want to squeeze them in there. So I actually try to put kind of 1 hour study sessions with, maybe 15-minute breaks in there within, and then just really concentrate for that good 4 hours of chunking, okay, your study ones, and for whichever courses that you want to put in some good work in. And then, once you're done, I don't know. I mean, on Sunday, maybe you're going to church, or maybe a mosque or a temple or something like that, or things of that nature. So, you would that you would maybe shift the things around, okay, and have some time for, again, some life items like groceries, bills, and cleaning in case, maybe the Friday wasn't enough. And then again, hopefully you'll have a little bit of fun, okay, towards the end of the day to kind of relax. But notice that the starting of Sunday is actually planning out the week and, all things coming up. So where you can kind of schedule in maybe, on the days or reminders for yourself, when are your assignments due? When are your projects? Okay, when are the tests coming up or labs or things of that nature? You should also clunk that onto your calendar, right? So you don't see it here, but because it will be kind of the first week, but as the weeks continue on, if you get into second week or third week and things are starting to get due and tests are coming up, you should kind of put them in there. And then, the other thing is that you plan out the week so that your study times might change ever so slightly if you do have tests coming up or assignments coming up, right? But if you are scheduling study time all the time, then you won't have to study as much, right? When you are just coming up to a test, it'll be more of a review than anything else because you're constantly studying, right? 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week on a subject, okay, if you look at this schedule, okay, so that will allow you time that you don't have to necessarily use, and it's a much better way of studying. Okay, so plan out the whole week and plan out your calendar for the week so you kind of know what is happening. So I wanted to do this because I find time management is super important for anybody who wants to be good, okay, as a student. So you're not reacting and you're not trying to see, okay, all over the place, when am I going to do this or when am I going to do that? And then what you're doing is you're just wasting time. And wasting time is not going to give you the results that you want. Your schedule might be different, okay, the way that you lay things out, but the key point is schedule it. All right, so now that we've created our calendar, one of the more important things that we have to input and somehow manage is, of course, all our tests, all our assignments, labs, whatever it may be. So we got to put it in so that we know. So here, when I was pointing out that we have kind of on Sunday, start of day and plan of week, this is where you review all of those things. And what I like to do is, in my calendars, so I'm going to actually turn off this calendar altogether. And you'll notice that right here, what I have is I have an evaluations kind of extra calendar where I just put evaluations. Now, where do you get all of these tests and dates and so on? Of course, in your course outlines. So here's a little sample. Now, you may not be as lucky that maybe your teachers or profs don't give you, exactly the breakdown. So this is for instance, a schedule for math, and it tells you, when are the tests happening, where are they in class or somewhere else, when is the date if possible, and then what the values are so that you can kind of align yourself and see. So what I like to do is I like to take these things and then literally just populate my calendar. Okay, and I do separate the calendars from the everyday things and then the actual evaluations. And what I will do is once I populate all my evaluations and I put them in, then I can view them simultaneously. So I can put the full calendar on and then you can see the evaluations there, or I can just unclick it and then see that. Now, Google allows you to do that, and that's the calendar that I use, but you can use it in whatever capacity or whichever calendar that you utilize for these things. So if I bring this back here and let me just do that. And so what I have is I know when my tests are coming, so I have one on the 29th, the 19th, the 25th, and it says they're in class. So what I like to do is I would like to go directly, okay, into my calendar. So the first one, if I would go back here, so this is January, okay, and it said 29th. Notice it's empty because I closed off the full calendar so that I can just kind of see a full slate. And now I will put in my test. Now, I don't schedule the test within here. I typically will put it kind of on top so that it's just sitting there as a reminder. And then when I'm reviewing it on Sundays, I see what is coming up for that week. So this would be, for instance, math, test number 1. And I still like, okay, to schedule and color code it exactly. So math was red for me, and so that's exactly what I'll do. Okay, and you'll notice that this has been now populated. So that's test number 1, and I will do the same thing, and I would put it in, okay, for test number 2 and test number 3. And if I have, for instance, these online assignments or homeworks that they assign me, notice they're telling me when they're opening and when they're closing, how much they're worth. I will schedule those in as well. So for instance, homework 1 closes on January 13th. So what I will do is I'll go to January 13th and put it in here, okay, and I would say here, math homework, okay, number 1 closes, so that it's a reminder. And then of course I can go and check exactly if there's a time that is allocated to this. And again, I'll color code it with the actual color of that particular course. So, if I would do this and I would open up, let's say, my full calendar. So if I have both of evaluations and student calendars open, I see this so that when I am planning this out, okay, I am able to actually see the whole thing, right? So these things are popping up. The other one was in week, okay, so this was 29th, and that would be a test. Now, if I had other items, right, I would just schedule them in. So let's say maybe I had physics or something like that. I had a test coming up, and it doesn't really matter, right? Um, the the how you put it in. What matters is that you populate it and that you know exactly which days and what is happening. And then you always constantly review it back. So I'm not going to populate the entire thing. I can go back here to the first week. Okay, and now I can turn off the evaluations or turn them on. In the first week, there was actually nothing due. Okay, so that is the last item that you must schedule within your calendars. That's your tests, okay, your assignments, maybe exams, kind of lay it out for the weeks to come, and every single week, on whichever day you choose to have, I put it in here on Sundays where I'm reviewing the whole thing for a good hour and a half, kind of planning out my week and what will be coming up for me. All right, so that is pretty much the last item, okay, in terms of time management and trying to create a good habit if you want to become a good student. Thank you for watching, everyone. Okay, cheers.